Okay, so I'm about to dig into my bass patch. So yeah, thinking about this has been a lot of fun. All the people that we've kind of mentioned before that have gotten into using a bass patch for the performances or for recording, something must have initially kind of struck them to want to keep returning to that patch. And it's interesting to try and dig in within the past week or so where these people have spent years developing their patch. So yeah, I'm going to do the best that I can within a week, but it's kind of exciting to think about is if I do keep coming back to this setup, what else I can kind of draw from it. So at this point in time, I'm able to pull out a few different things. In my mind, I can, probably play a, 40-minute patch or something or performance with this. But, all the areas kind of have room to stretch out. And so I definitely haven't, stretched this patch out to its fullest yet. But here we go. So actually, the initial idea for this patch, I a few weeks ago recorded a patch for the Data Cult Audio podcast, which is a great podcast that just has experimental electronic music, just music in there, and so yeah, I was recording to do an episode for that. That should be out sometime in June, I believe. And so I did a patch that would, I guess I would kind of say, if you listen to my music, which usually at the end of every episode is a track that I've done, or if you've listened to one of my albums, I do get pretty kind of I have structure in my songs, or I feel like they come almost have like a verse chorus verse sensibility to them, and so I made a patch, that I don't know. I feel like it's kind of, if people know my music, be like, yeah, that sounds like something Kyle would do, and then I wanted to do another patch for it because you can kind of have up to an hour time working on this podcast or to present the music. So and there is kind of a focus to do longer pieces and let people kind of really sit with it. So then I wanted to make a patch that I could stretch out some things. So this is that patch, but stretched out even further. So it made me think about kind of what in terms of composing things, like what's important to me and how in this patch I can kind of be able to modulate all these things, which would be kind of timbre, rhythm, pitch, tempo, panning, and then like atmosphere or vibe is I guess what I'd kind of say like effects. So to not go into, I'll just kind of quickly go into, I guess, I won't go into like every single patch point and it'll just kind of come up as I go, but I am using the Buchla Music Easel with a 208 toolbox card from Portobello Labs. And then I've got the Marf clone, the 259 programmable complex waveform generator, the quad function generator, quad low pass gates, my 277 delay unit, and also the 207 mixer. Okay, so this patch first kind of starts out, I've had fun playing with kind of phasing sequences, like dual sequences, kind of Steve Reich type of stuff. My friend Jim Schoenecker and I have kind of been passing back and forth different variations on that with our Marf patches. And so yeah, I have both the kind of complex sides of my oscillators, so like the principal oscillator on the 259 and the complex oscillator on the easel. Pitch information or that they're drawing their pitches from the MARF. So each section of the two sequencers, I guess I'd call them, or function generators, are connected to pitch and they're tuned the same. And I thought it would just kind of be easy to have a bass tuning, so then I can also flip stuff around later on, like for pitch stuff, and I'd get somewhat the same results. And then, so I've got a 6-step sequence and then a 7-step sequence going to each of those. And so as they play, they are kind of phasing in and out of each other because they don't have enough, or they don't have the same amount of steps. And then I'm also able to, I don't have them clocked or synced together, so I am able to kind of jam with them in more of a freeform way with their tempos. So I'll kind of get those started. So that is also pan hard right, which you're probably hearing. That is the complex oscillator on the easel, and then if I bring in the one on the left, that's the 259. So part of, I guess, the dynamics portion of this, I have their programmed pulse outs. There's stage 1 of each of the function generators going into 2 envelopes or function generators into the 292. And those are very accessible, so I'm able to kind of turn those whenever I need to, along with switching the tempo by hand, so I can start shaping the envelopes a bit more. And then I can, change tempo. I could speed one up a little bit and then slow one down. Or I can speed them both up. So I can have the envelopes kind of close down all the way or bring them up a little bit. So there's pitch information there, there's dynamics and tempo going on there. I also chose these oscillators because they have their the timbre and harmonic section on them. So then I'm able to put envelopes or random into those things to, make it not so static, because they're just basically 2 sine waves going on right now. So I have an envelope. I have basically the other 2 envelopes I haven't used are the function generators from the 281 going into each of the timbre circuits. So then I can turn those up. And I could do this by hand too. I have one that I'm sweeping by hand, and the other one has an envelope going to it, or I can use both envelopes. I also have, with the 208 toolbox, I have access to sweep the actual, the timbre knob, which goes from whatever setting you have it, whether it's square wave, triangle, or saw wave. And I also have the inverse of this envelope that I'm going to run to that knob, also going into the harmonic section on the 259. And that kind of makes it, depending on where the symmetry is, sound more like a square or a saw wave. So I'll turn both those up. So just another bit of variation. While it's a very repetitive sequence, I feel like with changing the timbre and the tempo and the different envelopes help make it fresh. So another cool thing I've got set up with this patch is I have the timing sliders, the timing outputs for each of the function generators on the MARF going into the panning for the 207 mixer. So these are hard panned left and right, But if I move up a slider, I also have like I've tricked the MARF into thinking that it's going to read the external input section for information for these time sliders, but I don't have anything plugged in there. So then I can just freely use these time sliders without them affecting the actual timing. So if I just move up the, let's say, number 1 slider, each time it passes over the first step, it's going to shift over to, it's going to go left or right depending which oscillator it is. So I just have 1 oscillator now, and you can hear on that lower bass note, it goes to the left. And then if I turn up like 4, 5, it's bouncing back and forth. So now if I get the other one in, it's kind of fun. I can also double up and use those. I'm going to shut down the function generators so they're at their minimum settings. I could also double use the timing output. Put these back down into maybe like the attack input on each of the envelopes. So plug those in, and now if I turn up, say, number 3, voltage is going into the attack phase, and you're getting more of a swell with every hit, and then it's also changing the direction of the panning for each of these. So to bring in some more vibe or whatever, I have a eventide space pedal here. I also have my delay, so I can also bring in these delay lines. Which is nice. I don't think I actually set that up. That's a good setting right there. But I have the control input for the delay time. I have my preset voltage source on the Music Easel set to adjust that. So with the spin of one of the knobs and or tapping through the other knobs, as I'll show later on in the patch, I can change the timing of that. So something I can also kind of riff on by extending the time or making it really short. And so yeah, then I can just do different things with all these parameters. Bring up the more time sliders to have it pan around and to have those attack sections get longer. Okay, and then so yeah, this has been good, but then I could slow everything down and pull open the envelopes. And turn up the delay. I could bring in the eventide space. So yeah, I went from pretty rhythmic to going more ambient. And in here, I could adjust different parameters. On the MARF, I could also bring in like some slopes settings to make things glide around a bit. And I could change their the voltage range, which should adjust it per octaves. I don't quite have my oscillators dialed in to get them at octaves, but they still sound pretty good. when changing these settings. What I could have done too earlier is also, I do have the program pulses on the second function generator. I could put stop steps on the first and basically sync them. So if I did want to have less kind of chaos between the two and wanted them in sync, I could have done that as well. And that's something you can do pretty easily on the fly. I have like a dummy cable set up here, but I guess for time should probably kind of move on. So yeah, so we're moving on. I wanted to get into something that was a bit more rhythmic. So I'm going to bring down all my atmosphere. And a fun thing with the Marf is how kind of weird you can get with the time sliders and the time range. I mean, there's like 3 or 4 different ways to adjust the timing on this thing, which is kind of fun. So yeah, if I kind of adjust my function generators, and if I bring in some random and modulation, bring in some, like some AM modulation. I can kind of get some more interesting rhythmic things going. So let me turn this up a bit. So this, I do have, I have one section, the second function generator, clocking the other one. So kind of by having a random smattering of time ranges, and I'm using, I think 6 steps on the right function generator, and then I think 5 steps on the left function generator. They're once again don't have the same amount of steps, so as one is clocking the other, it's kind of a random setting of when things are going to repeat. So just changing different, here, actually I'll take the modifiers I had into the attack portion of this. So yeah, just by adjusting the sliders on the Marf for the stages that I'm using, I can get different rhythms. You can also adjust the overall time multiplier. I have that set kind of quickly all the way up. Yeah, so I can also then bring back in the delay. When you kind of have this rhythmic stuff anyways, you can really get weird with kind of doubling up those rhythms. And So yeah, I could jam on this for quite a bit, and then I could also bring in other voices, because I haven't brought in the other oscillators, the modulation oscillators for either of these. So I could bring in, like a drone from one of them. Got another one. Let's see here. I've got the other easels. Atmosphere, the eventide, and I'm changing pitches on the modulation oscillator with the 218 keyboard, so something I'm able to do by hand and come up with stuff, which is always nice. From here, I could turn up the delay, and if I get this to feedback, I've got this cool feedback generator now, so I can pile on more reverb, get more vibe out of it. Also, with the preset voltage source that I have set up to control the delay time, that can also control its pitch, basically. So by switching one of those, I can change this feedback drum. I also have the modulation oscillator's second output on the 259 going into the modulation input on the delay unit. So if I turn that up, it can get kind of nasty. It's kind of fun. So yeah, I got this drone stuff that I could go on and on with. And then that'll kind of just lead me to my last part, which I'll kind of come out of this. I don't know if it'll be that graceful. So moving along in the MARF, I have the last 4 stages dedicated to this last section, which uses all 4 voices. I've got a 4-note delay line with with the Easel's complex oscillator. I also have that triggering the 5-step sequencer on the easel, but that's going into the 259's modulation oscillator. So if I bring that up, making kind of chords with that. Using the MARF further, I don't have any envelopes going into the low pass gate that I have the modulation oscillator going through, so I could use the reference owl and have it more rhythmic in time with kind of hits following along with those changes. I can then bring in the the other modulation oscillator on the easel and have that hooked up to pitch. So bring that up a bit. Probably out of tune now. Yeah, so if I had my tuning right, I could jam along with that. I also have the last oscillator, the principal side of the 259. So I have a bit of modulation on there, I can bring that down. And that's kind of just cycling through the same 4 notes that the other complex oscillator on the easel is using. Yeah, so I can bring up more reverb and could jam along with that. So yeah, fun, lots of possibilities with this. What I didn't even dig into what I could do, I just kind of wanted to stretch out all the 16 steps I had on this Marf. This because you can save patches on the Marf for settings. You know, I could have this saved and I could move on to another patch and have a whole other 16 steps to play with. So I could do longer sequences or kind of change it up any way I want. So the Marf is definitely kind of the heartbeat behind this patch. I think what's probably lacking is definitely my my lack of source of uncertainty. I was using any random coming from the easel, and that's being clocked by one of the function generators, but it'd be nice to have different types of random, and also that I can clock separately from different sources. So like in that first section where the 2 clocks aren't synced, it'd be nice if they each could trigger their own random pulses. And then I did have to do some repatching with this here and there. It would be nice if I had like a CV processor that would that I could go mix between different CV sources. So if I wanted to go from random to a function generator to like affect a tamper or something like that, I could do that more easily. But yeah, pretty minimal patching and have a lot at my fingertips, and this was a lot of fun. So thanks for tagging along.